I think that's where video as a tool to communicate our work really makes sense to me. I found myself guilty of doing this, but only when someone asked me to do the same, I realized how annoying it was. Long form just suddenly switched to short form. Things are changing so fast that it's really hard to even comment on it. It's also such a weird space to be in. You don't want the short-term lifespan in people's minds. You want to live there rent-free.
Welcome to Refuel. This entire series we are producing for young people in marketing and especially in video related, teams and freelancers. Let's start off with this. Let's get to know a bit about Without. So explain Without to someone who's never heard of it. What problem are you solving and why is it hard?
So, if someone who has no idea about who we are or is watching someone speak about it for the first time, I would introduce us by saying we make sunglasses from packets of chips. Now, this particular line is our hero communication, and it has done wonders for us because it's so simple and it's also slightly comical because it's like what you're making sunglasses from packets of chips, like something as silly as packets of chips, but something that you think is so silly and insignificant is also insanely produced in like huge numbers and like huge volumes, and it's also ignored by us, yeah, but also by the recycling streams because it's made of multi-layered plastic that no one can possibly recycle. People want to recycle like the PET, which is easily recyclable, but this multi-layered plastic comes with multiple layers, like the name suggests, making it very difficult for it to recycle. And and we make high quality products from this unrecyclable waste. And when I say high quality products, the goal is to get into supply chains of every company, right, that you can possibly think of. So we want to be in your car, in your camera, in like the tires. We literally want to show you applications of plastic, of our recycled plastic everywhere, because plastic in like the past 100 to 100 years, it has reached places that electricity hasn't. So you understand how vicious it is in that way. So we want to prove to you that recycled plastic is equally helpful in that way, and that the applications and the properties are quite similar, and it's just like the mindset or the taboo that is there around recycled plastic. And that's the whole environmental impact part of things, right? But there's a huge social impact side of it, uh, which is the fact that everybody who works at our factory in the manufacturing team, they're all former waste pickers. So people who used to pick waste on the streets of around like Pimpri and Pune area, they now work in the factory. They know how to run the machines, and they earn 2.5 to 3x of like what they used to earn.
And as the creative head, what are your responsibilities and how do they serve this mission of Without that you just told us about?
So when I first joined as like a marketing person, my work was to build the brand guidelines, which is like setting the foundation right with the kind of colors and the font. But slowly it snowballed into something so huge that every single detail of like the angle at which we're showing one of the manufacturing team members starts to matter so much, because it's really just about perspective. And um, trying to think beyond color and texture and all these things, and speak to the audience in every way possible. And I think that's where video as a tool to communicate our work really makes sense to me, because it's all about being able to control so many factors of the narrative, right?
What's it like been for you with cinema, YouTube, Reels, and what has shaped your taste?
So with video, something we should address is how long form just suddenly switched to short form, and suddenly everything's short form. But it's also such a weird space to be in, because when I was studying communication and media, we were still discussing and reading articles on how short form content might take over. And today, and it's things are changing so fast that it's really hard to even comment on it, because on one side there's people making videos where that in the first 6 seconds you need to have the hook, but that time duration is slowly decreasing, and now it's 0.5 seconds before we know zero 0.5 seconds is the new standard to have the hook and catch the attention of the audience. But also, it's your objective, right? I understand that short form content is what seems to be working out. But when you're making content, I think having the objective down in your mind is what really matters. So many times I'll be at the bus stop in like somewhere in Pimpri, and I'll see people beside me. On their app editing videos, and it's just so cool to see how everyone around you is just making these videos on their phone while they're waiting for the bus. So the fact that it has become very accessible is what makes me really happy.
What do you think is not working in the context of marketing for business? What is it about short form video that might not be working?
So I want to again mention some positives of this whole short form content thing, because it has done immense things for people. So many people have become content creators now. They do it side by side, like their corporate job, or for people who didn't really have a lot going on, who just picked up and decided to speak to the camera. It has done wonders for them. It has brought them into spaces they never thought they would be. And I know a lot of these people, and I've seen these stories online. So I think it's all about access, and it's a very class related thing, that you have this access to put your ideas out there. So again, short form content has done wonders. But for businesses, I've seen a lot of businesses trying to very mindlessly just hop on trends or just run the whole attention game, which I think just seems very selfish to look at as a consumer. Because let's say like a Zepto or a Blinkit, like their whole business model of like the quick commerce industry depends on, quickly delivering things, or very short attention just really goes very well with the sort of business model they have, right? And a lot of their advertising and the punchy or like the silly notifications that they send, like their whole marketing and their whole brand personality sort of relies on this whole style of like quirky model. So I think something like that does make sense. But if you're not a business in the quick commerce space, why would you still try to make similar content?
So, what do most companies get wrong when making videos about sustainability?
Okay. So the sustainability space is like a whole rabbit hole, because I also realized, and I don't know if I can say it on camera, but I realized that when it comes to sustainability businesses, 80% is marketing. Because if you really look at their business model or their factory or what they're trying to do, it's just marketing. There's barely any sustainability to it. Uh, and it's just really sad, but it's also a proof that people can really get creative with how they think. And it's like, okay, people are getting creative and having fun with whatever they have, with the means that they have. But the deeper you go into this, you see how creative people can get, because most of it is just fluff if you think about it. Which is why I think we made this video called Sphericality, the concept of sphericality with Fuel Media. So the concept was circularity is not enough. Think just because suppose like a bottle, let's say a PET bottle, just because I'm able to recycle and make it into a bottle again, doesn't mean it's circular, because it's only looking at the material aspect of it. Where did the bottle go? Where did it end up? How did it come to the recycling facility? Do you have the standards? Do you have the required, the machinery or the plant or whatever to recycle it? Who got it there? Who made sure that it ended up there? There's so many other factors that someone needs to look at before calling something green or circular, and that's where the whole concept of sphericality comes.
What's your most controversial opinion about video marketing right now?
One thing that really bothers me would be the difference between an art film and a brand film. And this is where I've also like been guilty, because I found myself speaking to agencies or videographers being like, hey, I want this really meaningful brand film that's like very artistic and cinematic and speaks to the audience that we're trying to connect with, which is also very intellectual and all of that. And then later I was like, wait, this video is nice. Let me clip it. Let me add like a clip in the end where I'm saying, hey, go check our website out. Like I found myself guilty of doing this. But only when someone asked me to do the same, I realized how annoying it was. And it's important that we understand the difference between an ad film and a brand film purely because of the objective. Do you want people to buy the product and then forget about you? Or do you want to stick around in their minds saying, this company is actually doing some chill work? Like, I think we have the same worldview. So I think it's the objective that really matters again, because you don't want the short term lifespan in people's minds. You want to live there rent free for the kind of work you do. And I think that's where people should have a lot of fun with brand films. I think Tanmay Bhatt does make really good mainstream videos. So that's fun to watch, because I can't tell you the brands that he's worked for. I can't, but I can tell you what happens in those videos, which I find very amusing.
One of the best ways that we can understand how you think, how you go about designing, how you work with constraints, and how you work with creative decisions. At the end of the day, what is the impact and what is it that you learn from it as well? It would be great if we can break down this recent campaign that you did at Without with your team, where you made certain digital content. And from that, I think we should maybe first focus on what was called the invisibility video. So can you maybe take us through that video right from the top, where what was the marketing need, the brief, down to the execution of it?
So, before talking about these campaigns that I did, I think it's very important to acknowledge that Anish and I think, have very similar sort of view when it comes to like the creative and the kind of narrative we want for Without. So, that does work out very well. And he also sort of has put just like given it to me and been like, you know what, you have to make a cool video for Without, because we're trying to do this whole campaign around the months of August to September and all of this. And I got to control like a lot of it and like sort of take lead. So, Invisibility was a random video I saw on the internet where someone in like a fast fashion factory, they are sewing something, and as they sew they put paint on their fingers, and it's like a white sewing machine, white cloth, and there's just paint on their hands, black paint, and they're sewing and sewing and sewing. That's the clip, and no caption, nothing. And I was like, wow, this is so interesting, because you're trying to, well, you're not using the color red, but you're trying to show that there's human sweat and blood around whatever's being produced. And fast fashion, as we know, is like a huge burden to the planet and people, and it's honestly violence against like identity also. From the concept, you must have understood that it's a pretty abstract idea. It's like you're talking about invisibility or something, like some artsy video that you saw, and then it's like the point of selling white sunglasses, limited edition. So I definitely felt a sort of like anxiety, because I was between two parties where it's like, oh, I want to hire people who can execute this idea I have in mind. And then it's also, okay, the organization that I work with wants to sell like a limited amount, which is like 50 of these sunglasses. So I did feel like an anxiety between being like the middleman between the two parties. But the way we went about it was really like writing down the voiceover and timing every what happens in every clip with the voiceover. And I don't come from a film background. I honestly I have no skin in the game. But it's also, as an audience, I know what I'd want to watch and think, okay, this is cool. So that way we try to tie the voiceover to what's happening in the frame. And there were a lot of changes, because when I visualized it first, it was just like a clip with no audio, like nothing, just that one clip is happening. But I think that's where Fuel Media had helped with how you give it like a head and legs, because I only had like the uh, torso planned out in my mind. But I think having someone who understands the whole narrative and building like the uh, like back and the front part of the whole thing, like that's how I think things work out well. Finding someone who understands it and can help you build things around it without decreasing or even like exaggerating with the thing that you have in mind.
What was the distribution strategy when it came to this, especially something that is, again, like an abstract concept like this? What was your distribution strategy for it? How did that work out? And if you were to reshoot it today, what would you do differently?
Honestly, if we were to do the same campaign again, I wouldn't make it vertical. Like lately, I think I've developed like some sort of taste around the whole video thing, and just not a fan of vertical anymore. And I honestly would have shot it in not a horizontal, fully horizontal also, but like more of a 1:1. And I think that way it would have looked more serious. Like something, I don't know how to explain it, but something about vertical video just screams content to me. If something is 1:1 or film, I don't think of it as content. I think of it as some sort of like an artsy thing that I want to keep in my mind. That's just the kind of bias I think I have. And that's definitely a thing I would do differently. And also post on Instagram. And when we shoot it, there would be some sort of like a slowness to the video and sort of like an eerie feel, because you want to scare people a little bit, because this is that sort of a concept where you're talking about exploitation and people's identities being erased. That's something I would definitely change, where we make it very eerie and uncomfortable for the person to watch. It won't get wholesome towards the end where it's like, wow, we've fixed it, we've made these sunglasses, buy it, it will be amazing. Because if you think about it, it's like a drop in the ocean, right?
So when it comes to Without and when it comes to you, when you hire a video partner, what signals competence to you very quickly? And what are some red flags?
Whenever we're looking for videographers to work with or like creative people to work with, we first put out an Instagram story and like a WhatsApp status, because we want as many people as possible to reach out to us. And we want this whole like roster for us created so that we can swipe through it, where it's like, okay, we look at their portfolio, the kind of work we want and what they've done. And after all of that matches, I think it's also the energy which they give back when you explain to them the whole like idea that you have in mind. A lot of times, you will, if things will go well on phone call, they come to your office, you speak to them. We usually start with showing them our brand guidelines, because even though you show them like the logo and colors and the feel, what are our guiding principles, our mission, vision, and all of that, that's how we usually start meetings with people, because we want them to understand the whole gist of what we're trying to do. And if they seem disinterested or while we're speaking about that, I think that will be a huge red flag. Because if you're sitting in front of me like, okay, but what's the script? But like, what's the brief? I'm sorry, I want to give you the whole like Bahubali 1 before I tell you the second part. That's one big red flag.
Thanks, Sanjana. This was really fun. Thank you for your time, and I hope you had fun.
Thank you so much for having me.